Good morning. I'm Clara Bohrer with the West Bloomfield Township Public Library in Michigan, and it's my honor today to serve as moderator for the panel on early learning. We know early learning is the foundation to everything we are talking about today. Before I introduce the panelists, I'd like to recognize the fact that since 2013, IMLS has invested $8.5 million in early learning projects. Yes. Which includes the development of the Growing Minds Report, which called upon our policymakers and educators to fully utilize public libraries in their early learning efforts. This investment is helping to build and sustain the capacity of our public libraries to not only offer research-based early learning services and parent education programs incorporating best practices, but to also encourage them to reach out to form and sustain partnerships and relationships at the local, regional, state, and national level around early learning, with an emphasis on reaching our high needs families. It is through these partnerships and relationships that we will have success through collective impact. Outreach efforts continue around the country towards the goal of placing public libraries as a valued asset within the early learning ecosystem. And that ecosystem includes families, communities, educators, early learning systems, social services providers, policymakers, funders, it goes on. And at a time when early learning is a national priority. So our panelists today are all very well informed and have insights into these outreach efforts, and we'll share them with all of you. As well as when they're giving their presentations, they will also provide some recommendations for IMLS for future funding potential projects. So I'd like to introduce the panel in the order that they will be speaking. Diane Hutchins, who is the consultant and project manager at the Washington State Library. Beth Crist, who is the youth and family services consultant at the Colorado State Library, and Kathleen Deerr, who is the national coordinator for family-placed libraries. So we'll start with Diane.
And thank you, IMLS, for inviting me to speak today. I'm happy to share what Washington's been doing. I'd love to speak off the top of my head, but I'd probably go on for 2 hours, so I'm going to stick to my script here. Do public library storytime programs really help children learn to read, or are they just cute examples of kids and families having fun together? Telling funders and decision makers libraries matter is no longer enough. But how can libraries prove that their programs actually play a valuable role in the education of young children? Project Views, I love this graphic, was supported by 2 successive national leadership grants awarded to the iSchool at the University of Washington. It was the first research project to assess the impact of early literacy story times in public libraries and provided a way for Washington's public libraries to prove their value as community early learning partners. The Washington State Library used a portion of its LSTA grants to the state's funding to provide support for Project Views by covering the funding gap between the Project Views planning grant and the Project Views 2 implementation grant so that research could continue without interruption. It also provided support for boots-on-the-ground implementation of research findings in libraries that participated in the study. Project Views research was statewide. It involved a cast of literally thousands. There were 2,880 kids that were observed at story times. 720 spreadsheets were created in the process. There were 720 coding hours that were involved. There were faulty SD cards that were courtesy of the state library. We had 40 librarians who were randomly sampled, but it was wonderful. The research involved faculty and students from multiple disciplines, including not only library and information studies, but also people from the field of education and developmental psychology. It used scientific methodology. It linked observed behaviors of librarians and children to the state's early learning standards, which at the time were the Washington State Early Learning and Development benchmarks. They've subsequently been revised to be the guidelines. The study proved that children's early learning outcomes were affected by what library staff did when delivering story times. There were, as I mentioned, these great numbers, and Washington State is a state library is a member of the Early Learning Public Library Partnership. We call it for short ELPLP, which receives support from Thrive Washington, a public-private partnership. The ELPLP provides a framework that helps public libraries in the state of Washington to be more visible as essential partners in early learning. ELPLP member libraries provided the pool from which library staff were drawn at random to be in the experimental and control groups of Project Views 2. Without their participation, the field observations and corresponding data, which scientifically demonstrated that public library story times really do help children learn to read, would not have been possible. As expressed by Dr. Eliza T. Driesing, author of Radical Change and principal investigator for Project Views, partnership and inter-organization collaboration make Views possible. Partnership with the ELPLP and the Foundation for Early Learning, now merged with Thrive Washington, contributed to the development of the grant by acting as a liaison with their member libraries and providing resources as well as valuable insight and ideas during the planning of the grant. The ELPLP and the Foundation for Early Learning have committed themselves to the success of the grant, encouraging and achieving full participation from all member libraries. And I love Dr. Driesing. Unfortunately, she passed away last April, and she was wonderful to work with. But it was funny because she'd give me these reports that I had to submit for library development, and I was sworn to secrecy. There were certain things I could not reveal because it would taint the research, so it was indeed very scientific. Supercharged Story Times, you may have heard of. It's an online orientation to the research tools and methods of Project Views. It began a phased national rollout in the state of Washington in April, and is going to add 4 more pilot states this fall. It should be announced, oh gee, okay. I'm going to just say that Supercharged Story Times was made possible through a national leadership grant to OCLC, which is the lead partner, and other partners are Washington State Library and Thrive Washington ELPLP. We're also developing a new project, All Aboard for Kindergarten, which is going to develop a statewide Ready for School program that libraries can incorporate into their existing early learning programs to help ensure that all children are ready to learn when they enter school. Program is going to be designed using input from early learning partners, and the focus will be on 60% of children cared for by family, friends, and neighbors, but though all families are invited to participate. And All Aboard for Kindergarten will incorporate the research-based techniques that were developed by Project Views into the programs. I do have 3 takeaways today. We want to encourage funding to support collaboration among libraries as well as collaboration with external non-library early learning partners. To maybe each state could have their own early learning public library partnerships and regional early learning coalitions, which has really helped Washington. Provide more grants for early learning research, including the linkage of library best practices to state standards, and also mentorships between libraries and families on childhood development and the guidance on the use of media by children. Expanding the body of proof and basing best practices on research will help elevate the profession and gain respect for its practitioners as equal partners in early learning, which is not the case now. We also need to reach the non-choir, our non-users. Ask communities how libraries can help them. Are current programs relevant to their needs? Support funding for market research to assess what the needs are for parents, caregivers, and early learning providers and organizations, and determine how that community's library could meet those needs. Take a look at early learning documents. Be critical. Look at early learning plans, state standards. Also look at conference announcements, early learning committee members. This happened in Washington, so I'm not making this up. Look if there are any libraries involved. Ask those involved in early learning programs and education if they're familiar with things like summer reading programs and library outreach activities. To quote a recent announcement, and this just came out a few weeks ago, for an early learning conference, who should attend? Professionals who care for or work with young children and parents. Well, the list covered a wide spectrum of disciplines and providers. Guess which group was missing as usual? Librarians.
Good morning. I am Beth Crist from the Colorado State Library, and I'm so pleased to be here to share our project in which we're really trying to reach and serve low-income families with young children. And I'm going to start with just a tiny bit of history about the project because I think it helps with some context. A couple of years ago, we had this idea to start a statewide baby library card program to get library cards in the hands of babies, firstborn. We thought this would be a great way to promote early literacy activities right from birth, the importance of reading to your children from birth. And we especially wanted to reach low-income families with this program. So I started doing some research into this. Well, what are the best ways to go about reaching low-income families? And I found very little. There's very little in the research about how to best serve this particular audience. So we decided to take a step back, not pursue the statewide baby library card program, and instead apply for a national leadership grant to start to fill this gap in this research. So that's what we did. And we did our program called SPELL, Supporting Parents in Early Literacy Through Libraries. And in the application for that grant, we introduced Joan and Emily, who are fictional parents, both of 2-month-old baby boys. And we said that Joan lives in a low-income household and neighborhood, and Emily is in a professional middle-class home and neighborhood. And while the research shows that Joan and Emily are likely to be both good parents, the research demonstrates that Emily is much more likely than Joan to talk at length to and with her baby, read to him more frequently and for a longer period of time, take him more often to the library, and have more books in the home. And that, of course, all of those activities would make her son significantly more likely to succeed in kindergarten, throughout school, and really throughout life, right? So we wanted a project that would engage both the parents and really empower them to engage in early literacy activities every day, so that both of the sons would be equally likely to succeed. So with that, we had an excellent partner with Mary Stansberry, who's here with us today, and her colleague, Duan Zhang, both from the University of Denver. And we undertook some research. We did a literature review and a national environmental scan of successful programs at reaching this audience, both within and outside of the library community. And then we conducted some original research with surveys and focus groups with these low-income parents. And we're really focusing on parents with children birth through 3 to really target those first critical years. And what we did with each finding is we turned it into a really practical recommendation that library staff can easily follow. And so this is we call it our blueprint, and it is blue. And so this is just the front page, but I just wanted you to see the categories that we came up with here. And on the left, these are things that libraries and really other organizations too, as we found out, can accomplish within their facility. So these are things like train your staff in cultural proficiency. There's one this is a big one, but we're actually having a lot of success with it in Colorado already. We're very happy, which is ending fines and fees on board and picture books, right? This is hard to accomplish, and we have seen a lot of movement in this. So this is very exciting. The middle section is really on outreach. We know that not all parents will ever be able to come to the library, right? So we have to do a better job of promoting and getting out, working with organizations to partner and collaborate. And then the column on the right is home practice. So this is what we hope the first 2 columns will achieve. These everyday early literacy activities. So then we were able to get our second national leadership grant this October. And this 2-year grant will allow us to test our findings in 8 libraries and also train library staff across Colorado. So the libraries have had the ability to create a program that is applicable for their libraries specifically and their communities. And we gave them a sub-grant and matching funds to equal $15,000 each. And just with this small amount of money and with this training and our research findings, they've been able to come up with some great programs that are really already, they just started them in February, and they're already having some really significant impacts. So through the process of both of these Spell grants, we do have some takeaways. One is that more research is needed in reaching low-income families. Spell was a great start. We could not address all of the questions, of course, and we actually raised more questions. So, and then training, the second part of that is training library staff on those findings. Very important. Another takeaway is that libraries need some additional funding for removing barriers. That is one of the important findings of our research. These low-income parents have a lot of barriers to using the library. So funding for things like training and cultural proficiency, improving their collections with wordless books and materials in language common in the community. They need to be able to promote their services. We found that so many parents just had no idea what the library had to offer. So that is important. A bigger materials budget to allow them to end fines and fees on board and picture books. And staffing to provide programs in times that are more convenient to working parents. You know, the 10:30 story time on Tuesday is great, but so many parents can't get there if they're working, and it's just not conducive for them. Along with that, of course, some families will never be able to come to the library, so libraries really need more funding to do outreach to this audience. Funding for staffing, training, travel, and materials for outreach. The third takeaway is, quickly here, again, to reiterate what Diane said, we really need more collaboration. Some of the partners that these 8 libraries are working with are a Native American tribe, a migrant education program, county early childhood councils, subsidized child care centers, local United Way, and parenting groups. And these are having significant impacts. These groups already work with these low-income populations. Some of them are doing home visits. And when the library connects to them, that it just makes such a difference. So I see my time is up. And thank you. Please, the website is www.spellproject.weebly.com, and we invite you to follow the progress of the project. Thank you.
So good morning. I'm very honored to be here today, and I'm going to conclude this panel by focusing on early learning of babies and toddlers, which is what Beth was just talking about. But I'm going to do it through the lens of a Family Place library. Family Place Library's model has been in existence for over 15 years. We have about 400 sites now in 29 states. And it's rooted in research on early brain development and a family-centered philosophy of service. Namely, that the family is the constant in the young child's life and has the most impact on early development. And much can be achieved by partnering with parents in a climate of mutual respect, and also, you'll hear this again, working in collaboration with other family-serving agencies to create a strong network of community support. Parents need support. Whether the parent is coming from a high-income family, a middle-income family, and especially low-income families, every parent needs support. So as this slide shows, the architecture or the wiring of a developing brain happens at an astonishingly quick rate, and it's strongly impacted by the relationships and experiences that occur in the very first years of life. Dr. Jack Shoncroft, the director of the Center for the Developing Child at Harvard, states, "Scientific knowledge on this issue is crystal clear. Cognitive, physical, emotional, and intellectual competence evolve hand in hand. They are interdependent. One doesn't happen here and one happens there, which is when I went to school back in the 70s, that's what we were told. Don't worry about the emotional development of a child, just worry about their academic achievement." So when a supportive environment is provided, the emergent structure is sound and all parts work together. So with this in mind, we really need to recognize that school readiness is more than just academic skills. Children need to come to school with certain self-regulation skills already so they can develop executive function. And they start out as babies and toddlers being curious and they want to solve problems. That little kid, that 7-month-old that keeps throwing the Cheerios off their high chair tray is not doing it on purpose to annoy their parents, which is what a lot of parents think. It's doing it because they're learning something called object permanence. Something can be out of my line of vision, but it still exists. So these are all little tiny takeaways that we can use with parents. And I also want to say that I'm using the term parent this morning to talk about all the caregivers, not just the parent, because we know so many children are in childcare situations. So what we did in Family Place is we looked at the essential role of parents in providing secure bonding relationships and the full range of experiences that produce well-wired brains. And we looked at what individual libraries could do to support, inform, engage, and empower parents as their child's first primary nurturer and first teacher. We wanted to provide a holistic framework for library services that addresses the early development of the whole child, starting at birth, and their parents. So after meeting with parents and working with child development, family support, and parent education experts, some key components emerged. And the first is libraries need to develop non-judgmental, welcoming, permanent spaces within their children's area designed specifically for parents and their youngsters, which includes toys, books, and resources for babies and toddlers, and comfortable seating and things for parents. We want everybody to be there. So it's a place that they can come and they can feel welcome. And those of you that have or have had young children know there's not a lot of places in our society where that is absolutely a welcoming place. The second thing is we want programs that are engaging and developmentally appropriate and meet the needs and interests of parents as well as their little ones. Programs in which parents get to meet and form relationships with other parents and the librarian, and librarians not only model best practices in book sharing and play, but they get to know each family individually and can connect or refer them to the full range of materials and services available in the library and the broader community that can help strengthen their particular family. And the third is part of this, is actually partnering with social health and family service providers and museums. Museums are doing a lot in this area. So we just partnered about 2 years ago with the Children's Museum of Manhattan. We have their Eat, Play, Grow. We field tested that in Family Place libraries. We field tested their UMIGO, or transmedia math program, and we've done all that together. So there's a lot going on that we can work collaboratively with. And I like to think of libraries as being this fabric of community support. You have all these different agencies and organizations with threads running through it, and libraries are the golden thread. So compared to traditional library offerings, this is a major paradigm shift. And what we've really been able to see is that even though many, many libraries and people that work in libraries are still not comfortable with very young children, and they think it's okay to have a baby toddler program in this room over here, but we don't want it on the public floor. That's a little bit too noisy and too messy. So we're in the 3rd year of our IMLS National Leadership Grant, and we wanted to look at a comprehensive framework for library services for parents and young children, and looking again at the library as a key institution and partner in all of this. The interim evaluation and on-site observation of our 25 partner libraries support the findings of all of our past and regional evaluations, and it's really transformative. Between the comprehensive training, follow-up webinars, and ongoing technical assistance, we have seen changes not only in spaces and programs and collections, but in staff attitudes and skills and behaviors in regard to working with parents and very young children, and partnering with all the other agencies that serve them. And if we all look at what parents are doing very quickly, and I'm not going to read all of this, people are coming, they're staying longer, they are including feeling less isolated, they feel better informed, they feel more confident in their role, and they're actually spending more time talking, playing, reading, and singing. So let me get to my takeaways. So what we want to do, you've heard this already, is we want to fund supportive collaborations among libraries and health and human services organizations and museums. And then we also want to provide funding to library staff so they can increase their capacity in some key areas. Play is vital. You heard it this morning. If play is vital for adults, it's really vital for very young children. That's how they learn. So we really want them to understand the connection between play and learning, to understand how they can share this with parents and actually incorporate it into their programs, and also incorporate it into their on-the-floor engagements with parents. The other thing that parents need to have, the librarians need to have, are parent outreach and engagement activities. So many people don't know how to do this yet. So, and one last thing, I know my time is up, we really need to look at funding projects with successful home visiting programs, such as the Parent-Child Home Program and Family Nurse Partnerships. They're already working with families that are very, very at risk, and we can work together with them to reach those families. So thank you very much.
So now, after those wonderful presentations, we're going to open this up to questions from the audience. Are there any questions for our panelists? Yes.
Hi, Ruth Small from Syracuse University. I'd like to first commend the panel for a wonderful presentation in a very critical area. But I would like to hear you expand a little bit more on how you are addressing the needs of children with disabilities who may come to your programs, or are you?
Okay, maybe I can get started. Can you hear me? When we look at setting up environments and spaces, we make sure that it is really available to everybody. So we will have things that are specific for children with disabilities. We have toys with different kinds of switches. We have a whole toy lending library for very young children with disabilities and their parents. We work with early intervention people, so we'll a lot of times have PT and OT services done right in the library, or they'll have somebody accompany them when they come to our parent-child workshops. So we have all that available. And what we find is that the parents are really very, very supportive, and they think that this is wonderful, because there are very few places in their communities where they can go and feel that their children are welcome, that they're welcome, and they don't have to worry about an autistic child that's, you know, kind of acting out. We have had so many children on the autism spectrum actually identified by early childhood people that are part of our workshop, where they're talking one-on-one, sitting on the floor, rolling a ball, playing with a train, building blocks, and then their parents see all the other kids in the room and say, wow, you know, there really is something that's not quite right here. They meet somebody from that organization, and they're on the floor playing and talking just generally where you would, you know, at home in your living room. And then they're more open to go and get their child evaluated and find out what the services are, because they're comfortable because they've already met this person from that organization.
And as for SPELL, I would say that is definitely another need in the research area. We did not address that. Our research was more general into how to reach just families that are low income. And we did not delve into the disabilities question, and I think that is an excellent avenue for research.
And this is Diane Hutchins from the Washington State Library. In talking to Dr. Driesing when she was talking about the future of Project Views, she mentioned atypical populations as the next phase of her work. I don't know where that is right now. People are kind of regrouping since her demise last year. But one thing, again, a partnership that we can use is the Washington State Library. And I had suggested to her that part of our library is the Washington State Talking Book and Braille Library. And using the Children's Services Librarian at that facility as part of the project partners. And again, using the social services organizations within Washington. We could utilize those early learning coalitions too. It's a nice thing that we have in Washington, where we partner with the Head Start people and others that are serving diverse communities, and hope to use that, and also reach out and read Washington for that matter. Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, come now. Go ahead. Thank you. Right here in the front.
Hello, Greg Michaels. I'm with Madison Public Library. We're doing a lot of study into getting literacy into the homes. And that's where we see for underserved populations, low income. How do you deal with the challenges of the parent or the caregiver having literacy issues? And how do you implement an early literacy program with that element?
Okay, I'll jump in first. That's a great question, and it's definitely one that needs to be addressed. The spell libraries that we're working with, our 8 partner libraries, come across this issue, and they stress all of the ways that you can share early literacy activities with parents with low literacy. For instance, sharing wordless picture books with your child, or reading a picture book. Even if you can't read the words, you can read it through the pictures. You can tell the story in your own words. Singing is a great way to share early literacy activities with a child that doesn't require reading. So there are lots of ways still to do that. And that is really a key component of our SPELL project, is to teach parents and point out things that they're already doing in their daily lives and how they can just maybe do them a little more proactively in order to engage them in these great early literacy building skills.
And I'd like to add to that, we need to help parents learn to play with their kids. Adults do not play. They're not even playing with 1-year-olds or infants. I mean, that back and forth from that baby when they're going, go, 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 and you go, 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 and you're looking right in their eyes. That's the beginning of language. That's the beginning of literacy. And you don't have to be able to read fluently to be able to do that. So we want to talk about the things that they are doing and hopefully encourage them to do more. And when we get them into the library for a play-based program, they don't feel intimidated because, oh, it's just, I can play. I can let my kid play with the blocks. And then they find out, you know what? I can't just sit back here and watch them play. I'm supposed to be engaged with them. There's no chairs in the room. We really help parents get engaged and finally get down on the floor and play. And when we get to know the families and we find these things out, because they tell you more than you ever wanted to know once you really get to know them over all of these weeks, then we can also, they trust you, they know you, and then you can say, well, you know, we have this ESOL program, or we have this GED program, or there's resume writing. Because if we can make the family stronger, if we can build up their ability to be economically self-sufficient, get them some skills, then we're actually going to see better outcomes for the children. So this is not just about what we do in the programs and the kids, but it's connecting them to all of the other services. So holistically, we're really trying to help the family.
Oh. I'll just add one little thing. It's funny, Beth talked about using pictures for parents who have low literacy skills. And this was actually a topic of discussion in one of the Supercharged Story Times sessions where the trainer or the orientation people, we're not calling it training, suggested using pictures if parents have literacy problems. One project that Thrive Washington has come up with is something called Love, Talk, Play, where you do playful things with your children to help them to learn. And all aboard for kindergarten, we're looking at the state guidelines, early learning and developing guidelines. We want to put those into little bite-sized bits, maybe via texting, and make it very user-friendly for parents, because right now they're really daunting.
Helen Sule with the Partnership for 21st Century Learning. Are you looking at ways that these great programs are developing some of these students' or children's skills in terms of like creativity, critical thinking, kind of executive function, you know, just self-discipline and management, any of those kinds of skills?
Well, the State Libraries All Aboard for Kindergarten is actually going to be looking at the, kind of in the spirit of Project Views, looking at data from the Wild Kids Assessment, which looks at where kids are before they enter kindergarten, and it addresses the 6 domains of language literacy, mathematics, cognitive, social, emotional, and physical. So looking at the whole child, and also addressing where are there gaps in those skills, and hopefully to customize things so that we'll develop these tools for families by community where those learning gaps are.
In our SPELL project, we're really focused more on parent behavior So that's going to be the focus of our evaluation rather than actual child outcomes.
And the same is true for Family Place. We're really looking at transformation within the libraries, within the library staff, and just having the administration be on board. We require that an administrator now come with a children's librarian to a comprehensive 4-day training. And I know that they don't participate in the 7 hours of online, and the follow-up, they probably don't do that. But we want them to really understand it and to see that this is really economic development. If you look at what's going on, if you want to have a good workforce 25 years from now or 20 years from now, you better be investing in kids right now, because this investment is a pittance compared to what happens later on when they need all these other services and you don't have a good workforce.
And if you want to see the math for that, there's a great website, heckmanequation.org. Economist from Chicago who has done some wonderful articles on the economics of early learning. Very interesting stuff.
And Art Rolnick from the Minneapolis Federal Reserve also has a lot of stuff online about that.
Laura Damon Moore, Libraries Incubator Project, and a youth librarian in my day job. So I'm just curious about prenatal classes and sort of childbirth classes, and whether there are partnerships that you know of between libraries and those classes, and if you could speak to that, whether that's through hospitals or for low-income families as well.
Well, we run a program at Middle Country. It's not something that's across all the libraries that are Family Place libraries, but a lot of them do this because we talk about it and they get to see it on live. It's called Baby Bump. And it literally is for pregnant women. And most of the time it's for first-time moms, and we coordinate with a hospital where they have a maternal health nurse that comes in and talks about what's going on. A lot of times they will make arrangements so they can go and do a whole preview of the hospital and the birthing rooms and all of those kinds of things. And then we also talk about siblings and how you can get the sibling ready for the new baby that's coming. So yeah, there's a little bit of that that's starting to go on.
In our spell research, we found that probably the best time to reach parents is actually before they become parents, when they're expecting parents, with an early literacy message and with just a message about the library. And to that end, there is the Longmont Public Library in Colorado is partnering now with a Reach Out and Read clinic that is doing prenatal classes, talking to them about the library services and the importance of early literacy. And there are several libraries in Colorado, and I know around the country, who do a community baby shower once a year, right? This is an excellent program where they invite all the expectant parents to the library, and they actually have a baby shower. Often they will invite community organizations too to come and have tables so that the expectant parents can see all the other services that are available to them. And often we've heard from these programs that this is the only baby shower that some low-income parents attend.
Right.
And it usually, depending on the library's funding, it might come with a little bib or, some little gift, hopefully a board book, right? But yeah, so I would love to see more in that arena, for sure.
And I know there are libraries in Washington that have done the community baby showers, and some of them were very enterprising. They approached local businesses, so the businesses got a little, promotional activity there, and the parents got some nice materials in the process, and the library had a minimal investment, which, win-win for everybody.
Hi, Elise Eidman-Adolf from the National Writing Project. I was curious if any of you would want to speak to the issue of early learning and digital production and digital tools. There are a lot of approaches. There's some controversy. Libraries are also a central place for people to experience and learn digital literacy and work with digital tools. But the crossover to early learning is sometimes an interesting complexity for people. I'm just wondering where your programs fit around that issue.
I think we've all had, the panelists have had this discussion over dinner. But there's a prevalent notion out there that children under the age of 2 shouldn't have media, tablets, iPhones, what have you. I'm leaning in that direction from the research that I've seen coming out of the University of Washington and the iLabs and others, that there's a lot more learning that goes on when you have a human being involved with the child. I don't know whether it's body language, if it's eye contact. I think they say eye contact. But if you can use a tablet, but have a human being with that tablet and not just put the tablet in the child's hands. And they did an interesting study on learning Mandarin Chinese. And the child who was with the human being learned a lot more than the child who was just plopped in front of the television set or whatever the media was, and learned that way.
You know, I think what we have to do in our society, I mean, you can't even pump gas without a screen like that in your face. It makes me crazy. In our society, it's really not realistic to think that kids are not going to be in front of screens. I mean, that's a given. We may say that this is the best thing, and I truly believe that, and all early childhood educators believe it, and everybody that works with, you know, young children and families really believe this too. What I think we have to do is help parents find a balance, that the iPad, the iPhone is not a babysitter. If you were going to use it with somebody, then it's, you know, if you're looking at something and you're talking, just like you said, it works that way. But if you use it as a babysitter, it's not going to work. And it shouldn't take the place of floor time and FaceTime and constant talking and singing and book sharing and playing with kids, because that's how kids under 3, how all of us really learn. I mean, think about it. I could watch a video on how to hit a golf ball until I'm out there trying to really hit that golf ball, and I have somebody that says, well, try this and do that. I'm really not going to learn it the same way. So I think this is very true for young children.
And I'll add that one of the Project View's researchers, I sent my speech to them just for their comments, and one of them did ask for funding for studying the use of media by families and children. So that's their wish list, please. We need research on this, more research.
You know, we've had the Sesame Street Workshop people come and talk to all of our librarians and other early childhood people. And, you know, they're talking about, they look at how kids swipe and how they do this and how they do that. When you have really young kids, books, they just go back and forth with the pages and they play back and forth. But you're still looking at what's happening and you can talk about it. When they're swiping and the technology takes over what you want them to be looking at and learning, that's when I see that that's a problem. I'm sorry.
And I will just say the Association for Library Service to Children has just put out a white paper on just this topic. I think it was just issued yesterday or the day before, so you may want to refer to that as well.
I have a simple question. Sandy Tharp with the Iowa Tribe of Oklahoma. In your programs, are you also putting books with the families?
I'm sorry, what was the question? Replacing books with families. We're partnering, this is where we're partnering with Reach Out and Read Washington, and so they're partnering with libraries and pediatricians to ensure that books get into the hands of families. They feel like that's the one place where maybe you can hit a lot of the people that wouldn't walk into a library, is that they are going to bring their child into the doctor, and that's for them a safe place, a trusted place, so it's an optimum place to do that.
In Spell, our 8 partner libraries, most of them are giving books at some point. So it's really up to them, but some of their sub-grant funds are going to that. And in Colorado, we also do a unique program called One Book For, that's for Colorado, where we give a copy of the same book every year to every 4-year-old in Colorado, 75,000 of them, in English and Spanish through public libraries and Reach Out and Read clinics. And so we just finished up our 4th year. It's for 2 weeks every April. And so again, that one is privately funded. We work with the Lieutenant Governor's office every year to raise the funds for that. And we know, we've heard from parents that sometimes this is the first book that 4-year-old owns.
Mm-hmm. We also at the State Library a number of years ago used some funds from a Paul Allen grant. We have a lot of millionaires, billionaires in Washington, but a very generous grant from Paul Allen, and we're able to find books that were published by Tribal Printing Press with tribal stories and get those out to the many tribes that are in the state of Washington, and it was a wonderful, wonderful program.
a number of our libraries, we don't have something where everybody gets a book. It's, you know, we want them to come in. We want to go to where they are too, to where they kind of pay, play, and pray is how we get to it. You know, most libraries don't think, oh, well, let's go to houses of worship and let's go to food pantries and let's go to all these other places where families that really don't have a lot are. And we will get very good used donated books, and we'll have extra books that we get. And we also work with a parent-child home program, which is a home-based early literacy where somebody goes in and 1 week they bring a book and another week they bring a toy. But not every library does that. A few of the family place libraries are doing it. We've been doing it at Middle Country now for probably 20 years.
So you all, this is Tim Kerrigan from IMLS. You all mentioned at various points the importance of partnerships to support libraries' early learning efforts. And I'm wondering if we could be a little bit more specific about the types of partnerships that you see as having the greatest impact or highest value for libraries at a national level that aren't currently in place.
Well, Tim, I don't, not necessarily the national, but at the state level, your BUILD project that's currently going on, this is a project where there's 5 states that are pilot states where they're trying to align museums and libraries with the early learning system, the formal early learning system in the state. And my library, my state is one of them in Michigan. And we have found it's small baby steps. I'm not saying that overnight this is going to be all this full-blown partnership, but we are seeing through this collective impact and working with them and integrating into them that there's real potential for that type of partnership to have large-scale impact within a state.
And I'm from Washington. We're another BUILD pilot state. My All Aboard project, I'm seeing as a potential national model. If you know, we just had one meeting, but we're working with other entities that are involved in early learning and discovering what we do that's unique and what we might do that's duplicative and trying to avoid duplicating effort. But we're involving a museum member. We're starting small. We're starting in Spokane, which already has a very strong community collaborative, including libraries and social service organizations. And they're built on the collective impact model, so it's very grassroots. And I see where that's going to grow. Early Learning Coalition by Early Learning Coalition within the state of Washington, because it's kind of like a built-in framework to make it happen. And you have the players, you know who they are. One thing I'll note, though, when working with other entities from outside libraries, it's kind of like dating. And it's almost like people in education are like the men are from Mars and women are from Venus, and we're talking different languages. We come from different cultures. We may say something, and they'll look at us like, what? No, that's totally wrong. And then we're adding the museum into the mix. Yeah, that was interesting at the meeting, because they have another culture and another language, too. So that's been a challenge, but I think, especially in this age when we have reduced budgets, reduced staffing, if we're doing the same thing, it's really a waste of money. But if we pool our resources and know what we're doing, each of us is doing, we might have a very compelling product that we can offer to children and families.
Tim, I also think that there are family engagement networks out nationally that also could be potential for us, and that's parents involved in that and educators. And I know that Head Start has a huge family engagement, and the U.S. Department of Education now is placing emphasis as they're doing the Race to the Top challenges in states to include a family engagement piece. And so I think that that's a potential for us as well.
I will mention, again, Reach Out and Read and Nurse Family Partnership and other healthcare agencies. Our SPELL research showed that low-income parents often turn to medical professionals for parenting information and advice. So they're natural partners. And we do a number of things with Reach Out and Read, both on the state level, and we also try to help facilitate partnerships between local libraries and their local healthcare clinics. And so we were so delighted when Reach Out and Read got the IMLS grant this year. So we're looking forward to working with them even more closely. And also museums are a great source. And really any organization like WIC office. How about PBS? National Geographic. I mean, there are so many organizations to reach out to. I think it's pretty vast and exciting.
I think you said just about everything. You mentioned all the major ones that I was going to mention. But also, when we work with libraries from various states, we have them go back and say, what is in your state? For instance, in Kansas, some of the libraries that became Family Place libraries got funding from what was then called Smart Start, which is now called Building Blocks in Kansas. But they actually approached the libraries and said, we want you to do this. We want to work with you. So when you have other agencies that are that big, statewide, reaching out and saying, we want to do this. So it was Southwest and Northwest Smart Start Kansas. And so there's PreK and the First Five in California. So you need to go back and see what is in your particular state. How does that all work? And then build relationships with those agencies.
And I'll say state of Washington, we have the Department of Early Learning, which is a governor's level cabinet agency. And they received a Race to the Top Early Learning Challenge grant a few years ago. And the State Library just sent them a nice letter from the Secretary of State. We're thrilled you got this award, very nice. And Dr. Betty Hyde, who's the director of the Department of Early Learning, invited us over, and we just thought it was a chit-chat, and how you doing, get to know each other. And by the end of the meeting, she asked if we'd like some money to help them promote their early learning and development guidelines, and we said sure. So we worked to develop mini grants that libraries could apply for, and they created posters, they took in free copies of the guidelines they could distribute to parents. And it was a beginning of a relationship. Again, it was like dating, and we wrote this proposal to Department of Early Learning so they could give us the money. And the language thing, it took us, I think it literally was 9 months. It was like a really long pregnancy. But it was wonderful, and it started that relationship building. And I think one thing we noticed, and I continue to notice, is that libraries are very invisible to a lot of people in education. They don't think of us. They say, oh, we'll bring some books to a feed event and summertime event, and we'll give them out, or we'll open up the school libraries. And they forget about the public libraries. It's like, we're there already, we're doing summer reading. So we're meeting with the people that are involved in the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction that say, hey, we could partner together. You have your food program, we have our reading program. Why don't we do something and bring in more families too that way? So that's win-win. But anything we can do to help promote what early learning people are doing can really help, and help raise our visibility and respect for us. I feel like Rodney Dangerfield sometimes, like we don't get no respect. It's like people don't think of us. The other thing we're doing too in Washington is there's a move to have librarians certified as merit trainers, so that we can offer training to daycare providers who need to receive a certain number of STARS credits per year so they can improve their ranking. So it's very formalized, but it's great because we're having librarians getting the training, they're getting more visible. Daycare providers, early learning people in the community are saying, hey, I can get free training instead of paying $30, $50 an hour, whatever the rate is, for my STARS credits. So that, and infiltrating early learning conferences. I'd say get out there, get to know people, and let people know you.
I also think it's important that we get articles on the impact the public libraries have published in education journals, because they all look to those journals oftentimes for ideas, and that would give us great exposure, and we oftentimes don't do that. So I think we're...
I have one more question.
We have one more? Okay.
It's Sarah Fuller from IMLS. It's actually from Twitter. Rachel Gwaltney wanted to know, as education policy moves towards universal pre-K, what do you think the role of libraries should be in that conversation?
Well, say in Washington, we're positioning ourselves, we're trying to help that transitional role, and to look at the assessment tool that's used by the education folks, and see what can we do in libraries that will help support developing those skills, and help parents to help the kids develop those skills. So, again, partnering, what can we do in line with what's already an established standard?
Yeah, I think so. She said it.
What she said. Any other questions? Well, great. Please join me in thanking our panel today.